And now, we present FunTimes Friday Happy Hour.
Good evening. My name is Andrea Lawful Sanders, and it gives me great pleasure to be the host of this event tonight. Before we get started, I want to talk to you a little bit about some housekeeping tools that we need to work on, including turning down my equipment, because I've got everything chirping over here. This is a gentle reminder to keep your microphones muted unless you are speaking. Use the chat feature for questions assistance so that we don't have a bunch of conversation happening at one time. The session will be recorded, and it is recording right now. Let's see. There will be a poll that will come up on your screen. There you go. So we'd like you to fill that out. And this is streaming live on funtimesmagazine.com, Facebook, hashtag FunTimes Friday, and like them on Facebook. So if you're watching this and you're sharing it, please make sure you do the hashtag FunTimes Friday. Okay, we're going to have an opening prayer by Rylan. Is Rylan there? I see you. Go ahead.
Let us pray. O God, our help, in ages past, our hope for years to come, our shelter from the stormy blast and our eternal home. God, we thank you for this day, this time, and this hour. God, we thank you for this opportunity to call on your holy and your righteous name. We thank you for this FunTimes gathering. God, we thank you that you are still in the blessing business, allowing us to gather even though we cannot be together physically. God, we thank you for all those who are represented on this call tonight. God, we ask that you would continue to lead us, guide us, and direct us in the way that you would have us to go. We're asking that you would anoint this time of fellowship and information. We ask that you would anoint those who will be sharing and speaking tonight, God. We ask that when we meet again, God, that you would allow us to come still ready to just have a great time and ready to fellowship one with the other. We thank you and we love you and we praise you, and we commit this time and this hour back to you. You, it rightfully belongs in the first place. It's in Jesus' name that we do pray with thanksgiving and overwhelming joy. Amen.
Amen. All right. There should be a playing of the Black anthem right now. Is there a video?
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmony of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
All right, that was beautifully done. Thank you so much. Before we get into having a conversation with the Honorable State Representative Joanna McClinton, I'd like you to allow me a little bit of time just to talk about FunTimes magazine. Eric did not know I was going to do this. The other day I went online to look for something on the website, FunTimes website, and what I saw was a beautiful mirage of just Black faces being honored and loved upon and treated with such dignity and respect. In a time in this country where we have seen so much negativity about our people, about our culture across the diaspora, this right now is something that is welcoming and much needed, and it is like a breath of fresh air. So Eric, on behalf of those of us who don't always get to say thank you, thank you. Thank you so much. Right. Oh, thank you. Right now, we're going to have Sandra Lawrence from the FunTimes board give a few remarks.
Yes, thank you so much. On behalf of the FunTimes board, we are just so grateful to have this opportunity to share with the public information, because the purpose of FunTimes is to educate and to empower and inform. We are honored this evening to have State Representative McClinton here. She is no stranger to FunTimes, as Andrea is no stranger to FunTimes, and we are just so grateful for the relationships that Eric and the FunTimes staff and board have developed over these years for the cause of sharing for the African diaspora and our people information that will enhance the quality of our life. We thank you for this evening, and we look forward to just being enriched and blessed with knowledge, information, and motivation to just be able to fight the cause. And we thank you. Good evening.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lawrence. Fully appreciated. Jillian Thurgood, HR for Benefits, and you are there. You are one of our sponsors.
Hello, everybody. I want to start off by thanking Eric and the FunTimes staff, and to Sandra Lawrence for even introducing me to FunTimes in the first place. It was an honor to sponsor an event with FunTimes because everything is always so relevant and inspirational to me. Tonight was particularly special because the guest speaker is someone who has grassroots and deeply cares about the constituents in her area and outside of her area. Anybody can ask her a question and she's going to try to help them. And if you don't know her yet, she is so intelligent, and I know I'm not the person introducing her, but she's resourceful and she's our peaceful warrior. So I am so proud of Joanna. My company is HR and Benefits to You. And one of the things that I do as a focus is I help employers and individuals protect their investment. They're protecting their people, their body with some kind of benefits, and they're protecting their employees. So it's always so rewarding when somebody comes back to me and tells me, thank you, I really needed that. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you so much for sponsoring this event. We really appreciate you. Now, I get the privilege to not only introduce State Representative Joanna McClinton, I get to interview her, and I cannot wait. The first time I heard about you, State Rep, was when someone walked up to me and said, "Are you related to Joanna McClinton?" Now, I know I have blonde hair. And the blonde hair just happened 3 days ago. So I used to have black hair. And I said, no. And they said, well, you behave like her. You sound like her. And I thought, I've got to meet the sister. So, Joanna, when I first met you, I was like, Lord, politicians, muckety mucks, I'm not sure. But you are so down to earth. Everything Jillian Thurgood said about you. You're down to earth. You're about the constituents. You love us, right? And you didn't just get into office and sat on your laurels and waited for us to come and hand you a golden cup and make you feel like you were just absolutely special. You kept walking into the community. You kept serving us. You kept loving us. And so it is a great privilege. When Eric asked me to be the host and to interview you, I said, oh, that is a no-brainer. So let me just go ahead and introduce you so we can get this party started, shall we? Lifelong Philadelphia resident and lawyer, Joanna McClinton is the first African-American and woman to be elected to the House Democratic Caucus chair, as a House Democratic Caucus chair. For the last 5 years, she has been serving the people of the 191st, it's been 5 years? Legislative district by tirelessly working on initiatives that will better the lives of others. This work has awarded Joanna several public service awards, including the City and State's PA 40 Under 40, the Baristas Association of Philadelphia's Outstanding Young Lawyer of the Year Award, and FunTimes Magazine Woman of Influence. Welcome, everyone. State Representative Joanna McClinton.
Thank you for that warm welcome and for your grace. I'm so humbled for someone to say that we favor in any way. You are just such a distinguished and accomplished sister whom I admire greatly. And first of all, I want to thank Eric for all that you do, Eric and Zarabi and the team at FunTimes, as the younger people say, for the culture. You all do so much for the culture, for people of color, for daughters of the diaspora, for all of us, no matter where our roots are from. You make sure that we have news coverage. You make sure that you have a publication that is second to none, that keeps people informed, educated, and most importantly, empowered. I'm so excited to be with you all tonight. And special thanks to my treasurer, Darby Burrow. Jillian, she walked with me 5 years ago to even make where I am possible and in reach.
Oh, wow. So let's get down to brass tacks, shall we? There's been a lot happening in the country. A lot happening. Yesterday, we learned that we have a new vice presidential nominee in the name of Kamala Harris. She has Jamaican roots, East Indian roots, just a sharp sister. And we see all this stuff going on. And so it is the time for Black women. And so it's a great honor to really begin the conversation in a way that we can just knock some things out the park, right? So the first question I have for you, and so we're going to bring it down locally, and then I'm going to ask you some questions nationally. In light of the unprecedented time as a result of COVID, a lot of Black America is struggling within every facet of their lives. The focus now is on how to bounce back from COVID. What strategies do you propose?
So this has been an unprecedented time for sure. The struggles we have faced varied. It depended on what was going on in our households. For some of us, we have had COVID. Others of us have known someone that's had it. Many of us know people who have died from it. So we can start there with the health and the relational aspects, and then the practical aspects. Every single one of us is working in one arena or another, and we do that to put food on our table for the family members that we serve and that we live with, we're taking care of. And so many have been hit hard at the pockets with not being able to continue working. A lot of corporations are doing layoffs. A lot of companies are downsizing because of the uncertainties of the future. So many things. And I mean, industries that have always flourished locally, catering companies, hospitality. You could always be at a restaurant. I worked at a restaurant all through law school, but now these times are so difficult. We need to figure out What does it look like post-pandemic? Because we don't know when that will be. We don't know if that's the end of this year, if that's next year. We cannot say. We have to see how this continues to evolve. And I've been telling people, this is the perfect time. Whatever it is you've been putting off, going to school, picking up a new certification, figuring out how to get educated in a specialty, sitting down and getting a business plan. There are organizations that work with you. Now is the time to think outside the box. We have what it takes, not just to survive, but to thrive. We just have to look at it a little bit differently. If job A is not open to, so I can go in and do my hours, what can I think about for C, D, and E? And how else can I support myself? And of course, be able to support my children.
Mm-hmm. You sound like a typical Jamaican. 4 jobs, right? Listen, job over here, job over there. And since COVID, I am a host, as you know, of The Source on WURD radio. And so I've been having lots of conversation with small business owners who are absolutely struggling at this point. And one of the things that they've said to me is that they are not able to access the loans and the grants, and a lot of that, state rep, is because they did not set up their businesses properly, right? They threw out an EIN number. There is no business plan. There's no business account. There's just none of those things. Is there, in your estimation, is there a space for something, and even some of the sponsors who are listening, that maybe we can create a space for businesses to learn how to really push their businesses out and do it the proper way, so that they can access these billions of dollars that they just never got?
Yes. So that is a challenge that we've all had, depending on what we've done. I've never had, for instance, I'm an attorney, I've never had my own law firm. But once again, when I was a little bit younger, I sold Avon. And until I had to do those taxes, I didn't think it was such a challenge, but boy, I had to find out all these expenses. I had to get some paperwork together. I had to tell my accountant whether or not I used my cell phone to get in touch with my customers. I'm like, well, of course I did. I pull up with their deodorants. I had to tell them I'm outside. And so that is not a unique challenge to our community. Depending on how your business was birthed, how it came about, you may not have plugged in with the things that other institutions have. But it's not too late. We're going to talk a little bit later about some grants that the state has set aside specifically for minority-owned businesses. Many of the traditional SBA loans are for businesses that generate large revenue streams. They're not for the small businesses in my neighborhood, on 60th Street, on Woodland Avenue, on Chester Avenue. So we are working both with city officials and, of course, in Harrisburg to ensure that there are revenue and grants in reach. I mean, they have to be in reach. It can't be, figure out these 200 pieces of paper. So our state grant program, you go through local CDFIs, and I don't see Beach Enterprises on here, but when we're on Fridays, Ken's always on here. Beach is one of the providers. The Enterprise Center, Della Clark, is one of the providers. So they've set it up so you get the help you need, not just an application on go on this website and fill it out. They are able to give you what you need so that you can complete this one, and it's much more accessible than many of the federal programs.
Awesome. You answered that question beautifully, because it's one lots of people had and couldn't quite figure out how to navigate around it. And then there was the shame that we carry, right? We just didn't want to tell anybody our business, quote unquote. But when we don't speak up, then we don't get the answers that we need. So thank you for answering that question. All right. So what exactly is the direction on the matter of unemployment for Black America? We know that 55 million people have applied for unemployment in these United States. I'm not sure what the numbers are for African Americans. What's next in terms of race and equality for Black Americans?
So in regards to unemployment, that is a state service. Many people were able to not just get state unemployment, but they were able to tap into the extra money under the PUA, the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance. Here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, we do not normally have over 1 million people applying for unemployment. So you might be listening, you might be on Zoom or Facebook, and perhaps you're one of the several thousand that has not completed it yet or has not received your benefits, or you started receiving it and it stopped. please know my office can assist you. Any state legislative office, we're able to call up to the department and get a liaison on the phone to get information. Unfortunately, because it's so many more people than usual, essentially we're slammed and there have been delays, and those delays trickle down to our households and to our families. So it's very serious. Very happy to assist you. I will drop my office phone number onto the chat for Facebook, but for those of you who can take it down, it's 215-748-6712. That's 215-748-6712. I've received messages on Facebook, on Instagram. Do not be embarrassed if you didn't get unemployment or didn't go through consistently. You are not alone. It is really challenging, and we're actually working to fix that too, because we don't want our neighbors, our friends, our family members to have to say, well, I got it one week, but then I didn't get it the next, because we're relying on these things to be able to get us through.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, so I need to talk to you about the census. I have been bleeding like a goat every week on radio saying to people that the census is incredibly important for us, right? That the federal dollars are matched by the people who fill out the census every 10 years. So if you don't fill it out for this time around, it'll be 10 years again before you are considered even someone living in your community. That means a translation of federal dollars not coming into our communities. And so that's school, that's parks and recreation, roads, whatever. And then the president is saying that he's going to shut it down a month early. What measures, I know, don't do that, State Rep.
Was that on camera? Was that on camera?
I am trying to behave myself in these Wakandan streets. I really am. Okay. So what measures do we have in place to really convince people? On WURD radio, we're telling them every week, fill out the census, fill out the census. We have immigrants specifically who are quite afraid because they're thinking that they're picked up and put in detention centers or, you know, pushed out of the country, when no such a thing, right? There are laws in place that tells them that you cannot be marginalized or targeted because you're an immigrant. What measures do you know that are in place right now to up the number? Because I think it's still only like 50-something% of us that have filled out the census.
Yes, and in the Southwest Philly community, it's under 50%. So that is a real serious problem. I'm teaming up with my council member where I live, Jamie Gaudier. We're going to be doing some canvassing next Friday, August 21st, throughout West and Southwest Philly, kind of popping up. Have you filled it out? Do you need paperwork? Do you need information? But in addition, I was able to get a grant to Akana, which is right in my district at 55th and Chester, and they have community partners, some of them faith-based, others of them just nonprofits who are ambassadors. They got money from Harrisburg to go around and remind people, especially people who were not born here, who really have legitimate concerns. They're not illegitimate considering everything that has been going on, especially with this administration. They are valid. However, the census data does not go to any of those entities, none of them. It doesn't go to Homeland Security. It does not go to ICE. It does not go to any of those organizations. It stays right within the census, and then it's used to be able to develop legislative districts from council to Congress to state house districts. And then most importantly, when people are looking for places to do investment, they want to see, well, how many people live there? What is the housing need? What are the schools need? So we need people to complete it. We need a fair and accurate count. We don't want to miss any social service dollars. We don't want to miss any education dollars. So I know there's a lot on your plate, but it doesn't even take 10 minutes. You can sit down, you can do it very quickly.
You're absolutely right. So let's pivot a little bit and talk about the general elections in November. None of these questions, I am going like a regular. We are really concerned about what's getting ready to happen for the general election. There's been much debate about the Biden-Harris ticket. Facebook, I almost shut it down in the last 24 hours because my hosteps, you know, we're not doing this. So I literally want us to figure out a way. What can you say to people about the importance of this general elections and the upcoming ticket so that we understand what is at stake here? Can you, in a few words or a few sentences, tell us what exactly is at stake here for those of us who still think that it can't be much worse than what we have right now?
Absolutely. So many times we might think it is not significant, our vote is not important because we don't love, adore, and admire the candidates who are running for office. However, we are in a state of emergency in the United States of America. You can take time, look through history books or online scrolling, and you will see the lack of leadership in this administration. If you did not notice it before, you can see it through this pandemic. First, it wasn't so bad. Oh, we're going to get over it. We'll be back to church by Easter. Oh, you don't have to wear a mask. Now, so president's wearing a mask. I mean, that's a lack of leadership. So you might not have thought last fall when you saw those Democrats on the stage that you wanted Biden and Harris, but understand, beyond Biden and Harris, you are voting for the Supreme Court. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, we pray for her every day, but nobody lives on earth eternally, right? We're voting for the next Supreme Court justices because there could be another vacancy. You're voting for the Secretary of Education. You are voting for the top law enforcement in the state, the person who will run the Department of Justice, the Attorney General. You are not just voting for president and vice president. They fill all types of cabinet positions that if we never noticed before, we're noticing in this pandemic that some of these folks are not as smart as we would like them to be or as capable or articulate. So you are voting for much more than just the president and the vice president. We're voting for much more than that. And I compel and urge you to get up and participate and make sure that everyone you know who's going to be 18 by November the 3rd, you could have a birthday on the 2nd and you can register to vote. So make sure they're registered, make sure they're prepared, and make sure they have a plan, because all of our families deserve better. Instead of meeting with the leaders in Washington to work out a deal to be able to give more family stimulus, our president signed some order that doesn't take effect. It won't take effect. He doesn't have the authority to issue checks. You got to sit down and do the hard work. It's leadership, and he's not willing to do that. And if he's not willing to do it now, with 150,000 of us dead, what's going to happen next year? I don't want to test the waters and find out.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Because I'm telling you,
that's a personal message. It's
listen,
not fun.
I could talk to you all day because you're just making so much sense. All right, so let's pivot again and talk about police reform. We have seen since George Floyd died that so much has happened across this country. People assumed erroneously that there would be a little bit of protesting, a little bit of, uprising, and that it would go away. What we're finding months later, that we're continuing to see protesting across the country, right? That people are just, they're just sick and tired of being sick and tired. The young people have stepped in the gap and have done amazing work. And so there has been this hashtag defund the police. Now, I have to tell you all that I first of all, describe what defund the police means, right? In legal terms, so that people get it. And what is happening at the state level with Governor Wolf as it applies to police reform?
So we have not just been indoors and going out wearing masks and being careful. We have had to endure the horrific pain on our hearts from the deaths, the murders of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd. And as a result, I am so appreciative to every person, wherever you live, who takes it to the streets. We can see in Portland, Oregon, every day there are protests. And it's not just there, but it's all over our country. And as a result, people are asking to defund the police. However, it is not what it sounds like, and it's not the spin that the far right is trying to put on it. It is not defund the police, call 911 and no one picks up. That is not what people are advocating for. Defund the police means to demilitarize the police. So for instance, where Jilly lives in Darby Borough, I doubt they need tanks. I doubt they need certain facilities and equipment for a township that's awesome, but it's under 30,000 people. So there are all sorts of police departments across the Commonwealth that got federal grants over the last 20 years to really beef up policing, to make it militarized. So the responses are very, very abusive at times, and unfortunately too heavy-handed. So defunding the police also means reallocating resources. I always share that we all know families that sometimes have a little incident that happens in the house. I am not talking about domestic violence. I'm talking about other things that occur. And at this moment, there's no one to call if you hear noise next door except the police. Reallocating resources means you hear noise, you hear noise next door. It might be a social worker that needs to come and intervene and have a session with a family having a dispute. I mean, a nonviolent situation. So defunding the police is not what it sounds like. Now, to answer the question, we have made progress in Harrisburg. They are baby steps. You know, the first steps, you say, oh, the baby's walking, but they're not running yet. They're just walking. So those are the steps we've made. We've been able to get 2 bills passed and signed into law by Governor Wolf within the last month. Those bills, one of them creates for the first time anywhere a database that is maintained by the Attorney General to make sure that whenever an officer is hired, whether it's in a big city like Philadelphia or whether it's at the University of Penn, they have a police department of their own, that they go to this database and say, hey, let's look into this person's background. Let's see if there were any fishy circumstances at their last job. So that's one bill. The other bill trains officers on implicit bias, as well as on how to interact with children and youth, and also make sure that they can de-escalate appropriately domestic violence situations, which unfortunately tend to be violent for everyone involved, including armed law enforcement who show up on the scene. Now, what haven't we done yet, but we're working on? We're working on Act 111. We're meeting with labor organizations from across the state to figure out how we can get into that police contract. It's like one of those old yellow phone books, so that we can make sure that bad apples do not remain on the job. So that's something we're working on. And then deadly force. Why do officers get arrested, get charged, go to trial, and get acquitted? Because Pennsylvania, like many states in the country, has a large deadly force clause, and it essentially excuses violent behavior if they're threatened. And that can be interpreted in many different ways. So we're working on all of those. We're returning to session in September as scheduled, but hopefully before this month is out, because we've been reaching out to our majority party and our friends across the aisle so we can work out more compromises on these issues along with the election code.
Yes. Oh, I could talk to you all day. All day. All day I could talk to you. What measures can be put in place to enforce equality in Black America?
That's a tough question because when we think about enforcement, generally speaking, we can enforce the laws of the land by policing and institutions like that. But to enforce equality and more importantly, equity, I like to think that the biggest challenge that my neighbors have in my district is access to opportunities. It's not that they don't have the wherewithal to compete for opportunities, but they don't always have access to opportunities. So I think that those who are in public office need to make every effort to connect their constituents and the ones at large to these opportunities. And then we can talk about measuring the equity or the equality. So for instance, I had a meeting last week with the Northeastern Regional Carpenters, and they're always looking to recruit people of color because they'll be glad to say on this show or on this broadcast, you know, that most of their union members are not people of color at all. However, what can we do to partner? So we're going to be doing, my office, a virtual town hall in September to make sure we put the information out there and explain what the opportunities are that exist and be able to connect people and hopefully younger people to these types of opportunities.
Wow. You said something that struck me, that politicians need to figure out ways to gain access so that they can have their constituents, give access to their constituents. And I believe it was Dwight Evans, some years ago, really worked on the corridor that he was in. I don't know if he was a state rep at the time, but
yes, he was for a long time.
Yes. I mean, he redeveloped that whole corridor, even went as so far as to reface people's homes, right? To from Martin Luther King all the way down Ogons Avenue. And it just was, and the people were so excited and happy. And so, how can we get other politics? I can't ask you that question, because because you can't make people do what they don't want to do. But that's an example. And for me, it looks like you're following in those footsteps, right? Making sure the people that you service are able to gain access, because without it, we see so much violence in our streets, right? And I always tell people, violence is attached to poverty, right? And hopelessness, and not feeling like they have somewhere to go or access to certain things. Speaking of violence, though, and then I'm going to give you a short break because we've been talking for a while. What has been put in place, or what is happening to kind of quell the violence that we're having in the city right now? I see a lot of people having meetings and press conferences, and God bless their souls, that's all good. But then after we have the meetings and the press conferences and we holler into the microphone, what comes after that, right? So what ideas do you have to put in place as a state rep that would help to quell the violence in our communities?
So you've hit the nail on the head. Violence is a symptom of poverty. Many people say, well, why are so-and-so having such violence in their neighborhood, such gun violence, such anger, such rage? It does not just start because of one dispute. It starts with a mindset of, I have a dim outlook on my future. And when, everything else around me is threatening my existence, I am in fact hopeless and am not walking around valuing my life or anyone else's. So one of the things that we are working with the city on is the group violence intervention program. It was called Focused Deterrence back in about 2012, and it worked really successfully in South Philadelphia to bring the shootings down. And essentially the program is a model where they're giving incentives to people who are either known to be involved with group violence or who are likely to be a victim of group violence. And they identify them with a lot of police intelligence and then also the streets talking. And they go into the neighborhood with a team. Now, normally it would be a big event where they could bring a group together and they have people to talk to them to try to compel them to also pursue one of the options that are presented. So perhaps a mother who lost a child to violence would be in that group. Perhaps an OG, an older man in the neighborhood, would be in that group. And then there would be real resources connected to these choices. Like, we know who you are, we're watching you, you have an opportunity to do something else. You can join the Carpenter's Apprenticeship Program. You can go to Jeff Brown's Uplift Workforce Development Program and start in the store and work your way up to manager. You can do this, that, or the other. And this just has rolled out in the last week. So we are hoping for results. And the key for it to be successful is for it to be funded. And right now, I thank Mayor Jim Kenney because he gave $700,000. And thanks to my colleagues' collaborative efforts in Harrisburg, we have $500,000 coming to that effort, but it needs to be throughout the whole city, throughout every neighborhood, and they need to loop in the places that we trust, whether that's our masjid, whether that's our church, whether that's the nonprofit that's 3 blocks down that does the free taxes every year. We need to make it bigger, we need to make it better, and we need to make it more impactful, because it's not, unfortunately, going to just disappear. We can hope, we can pray, but as they say, the thoughts and prayers are not enough. There does have to be action to follow all of that.
Yeah. Yes. It is 6:38. We're 2 minutes away from 6:40. Can you believe it? We've been talking this entire time. It's just, for me, looking at you and recognizing that your law degree has been immensely helpful, but also your compassion for people, right? You didn't just get there and sat there. You're really doing an excellent job. We're going to take a short break. And what are we doing next, Eric? Let me just make sure. I see Ken Scott here, who is another sponsor. Ken, how are you, sir?
How are you? Good evening.
Good evening. So since we have a couple of seconds, to tell us a little bit about your organization and what you do.
Sure. Ken Scott, I'm the president of the Beach Companies, and we're about social enterprise. We have eight organizations, and many people are familiar with our foundation. Right now, what we're working on is, we're one of the 17 community development financial institutions that had administrative duties with the Pennsylvania state grants. So we were $200 million in grants that were going out to small businesses, which is very rare because, it's usually only nonprofits can get grants. But we had lobbied and advocated, and we thank the state rep and for all of her help, and Senator Hughes and the governor agreed there was enough businesses carrying debt during COVID, so it allowed this to be a grant program, so we don't have to worry about any repayment terms. But what's historic is that out of the $200 million, $100 million was set aside for historically disadvantaged businesses, which would be Black, Latino, and Asians, and gives us a real advantage as Black businesses applying, or Latinos, because of course it's less Black, Latino, historically disadvantaged businesses applying for that money versus the Main Street businesses applying for the $100 million. The stats just came out. Of course, it was overwhelming. We received over 50,000 applications for the first round. The second round just opened on Monday. And of course, we're doing the high touch service with the people in our communities of actually walking them through the process. You call our office. We have a street team that has actually been out talking with people, meeting with the businesses, trying to walk them through the process of applying for these grants. But I'm happy to report after the first round, we're distributing funds this week. And 70% of all the businesses, historically disadvantaged and Main Street businesses, were female-owned businesses.
Yes.
70%.
Yes.
So here you are.
Wow, thank you so much, Ken Scott. We'll talk a little bit more about this towards the end. We're going to now take a brief intermission. Don't go anywhere. State Rep, sit tightly, please. Just hang on. was so nice. So they told me that you have a birthday coming up and they wanted to wish you a happy birthday. I could see from your face you were surprised.
I'm all red and embarrassed. Thank you, FunTimes team. That was such a very sweet and beautiful tribute and totally shocking. I'm like, what? There's my dad. There's my dad and me as a baby. What is this? Thank you so much. What a really true blessing and a wonderful surprise. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna start having to delete my page or take Eric off of it.
Good. That was good. I thought that was a nice gesture on their behalf. So I saw your dad. What made you decide to become a lawyer and then pivot to run for office? And what advice would you have for anyone, but specifically a Black woman who decides that she wants to step up and run to lead?
Excellent questions. So my father definitely challenged me, not so much in that picture for my profession, but as I was growing. So I'm an 80s baby and my birthday's in a couple days, and I grew up not with any lawyers in my family, but I watched Matlock every night. And he would be in court with the gray suit, and I'm like 5, like, I'm gonna do that. I mean, from really little, I was like, I'm gonna be a lawyer. Thanks to Andy Griffith. I appreciate all you did for me. But it was a childhood dream. And as I did grow up, you know, I ended up going to become a public defender here in Philly. And my dad was like, how long are you going to be a public defender? You broke, you don't make any money, you doing this, you're doing that, what you want to do? And so the longer I was at the office and before he passed away in 2008, I was telling him, you know, I really want to help people. I really wish there was a way that I could help my clients before they become my clients. I really wish I could meet them earlier in life and talk to them and engage with them and try to guide them to other pathways and opportunities. Because as we all know, there is a pipeline that leads right to prison. And there's so many factors from poverty to lacking health care and so many other things that unfortunately are predictors for whether or not you'll likely be arrested and end up in prison. And so my father passed in 2008. And at the time I did not have any political aspirations whatsoever, but I'm so appreciative to my neighbor and my brother who lives around the corner, Senator Williams, got a job in his office when I left the public defenders in 2013. And it was the first time I ever had really been in politics as a working adult. And I got to sit in meetings. I was never at a table, always around the table, taking notes. And I got to see these folks make really important decisions that affect all of us. So while I was in his office just soaking it all up, you know, a vacancy became in my neighborhood. And although I wasn't like, oh, I'm going to run one day, he challenged me because I was not interested and said, Joe, why don't you want to step up? And I'm like, me, I'm scared. Nobody knows me. I don't want to do that. People hate you. I don't want them to hate me. Like, I don't want people yelling at me, saying I'm the reason why things are bad and not good in the neighborhood. I said, I can't take it. You know, I'm a softie. And so long story short, because it was a special election 5 years ago, you know, it wasn't a lot of time and there was no playtime. So I prayed, I talked to my mom, I talked to my pastor and said, you know what? Don't discount yourself just because you don't see yourself in that position. You are a hard worker. You are smart. You will stand up and fight for people the way you did when you were a public defender in the years in youth ministry at your church. Don't think that this isn't an opportunity for you just because you never thought of it. So to young people, and especially to young women of color who see themselves on the stage, on the national spotlight, like my girl, oh, this isn't partisan, Senator Harris, you know, do not think that you don't have what it takes because there are still in 2020, so few of us. We are grateful for you, Shirley Chisholm, but there's still not enough of us. Still, we're bringing folding tables to the table because they're not inviting us. Although my district had been traditionally with great leadership, there had never been a woman before me in 2015. And 2 years ago, my colleagues stepped up and elected me to be one of the leaders in a spot where there had never been a woman or a person of color. So we have a long road to go. And Lord knows, he has an expiration date for me in mind. So I need every young lady to get on board, to get involved, to see yourself taking this seat I'm in now and the ones much, much farther. Being a first Black woman to go to Congress from Philly. We haven't had one. To be the first woman to go to the Senate, United States Senate. That could be one of you watching. So just don't discount it. Be involved, be engaged. And when you are afraid, as I have been at many times in my life, go deep down on the inside to figure out your why, your motivation, and get out your head and push along.
Yes. Would you be willing to mentor anyone that wants to run for Congress or Senate or, you know, state rep?
Absolutely. I haven't sought those big seats, but certainly what I've learned in 5 years, I'm absolutely willing to share with everyone. And the part of my caucus responsibilities include reaching out to people who are seeking to join us. So I look forward to participating, to hearing from people. Don't hesitate to contact, to reach out. We can get on Zoom, we can talk. I'm happy to do that. That would really be an honor, quite honestly, for me.
Mm-hmm. This is not on here, but I've gone completely off script from the very beginning. So let's just go ahead and continue the practice, shall we? How do you decompress? What drives you? What energizes you to keep going, especially now with all that is happening around the country?
So my office will share that there are a few times when they know I'm not available, and it's very few. And one of the main ones is Sundays from at the time when we were open from about 10 to 2 o'clock. And there would sometimes be things happening in the district. Oh, so-and-so has an anniversary. And it's like, listen, I could come to the second service or the early one, but I have to have a few hours because my faith truly fuels the passion and the purpose for which I'm serving. So I have to dedicate that time. And now it's much easier and simpler since I'm home. And I try to do my service and then listen to some others because there's so many good folks online and on YouTube and on Facebook. And I use that time for me. And when the world was open, I would try to get to Zumba class once a week, but that was hardly happening. But now that I'm home a lot, I get to do it at leisure. I'm working with the gym in my district, Gym Rats there at 62nd and Larchwood, but I do that in my home on Zoom. So I'm just carving out time to figure out, you know, to in fact have those moments of rest and recovery because we have a long fight ahead.
Yes, indeed. Absolutely, indeed. So I'm going to pivot back to the questions that Eric sent me. As chair of the State Democratic Caucus, what are your duties and what benefits to your constituents has your position of power afforded you?
Absolutely. So the caucus chair is the person who convenes the meetings every time we're in Harrisburg, or for the last 4 months, we've been voting, some of us from our homes or our district offices. And those meetings happen every day before we take any votes. And the purpose of those meetings is to talk about all of the bills, to ensure that every member's questions are answered. And currently we have 93 members. And so we also hear from our top legislative staff. They explain and they answer questions. So I run and facilitate those meetings. My office team in Harrisburg, they send out all the details on all the bills before the meetings, after the meeting, so that members have information. In addition to that, how this has been able to improve my service to my district is because when the top decisions are made, what are our priorities going to be? How do we respond to what's happening? I'm sitting at that table and I say, well, actually, here's another perspective. And because for so long, thanks to Representative Rosita C. Youngblood, she became the first Black woman in 2016 to ever be elected in leadership. And she's our current caucus secretary and she's retiring soon. But thanks to her, she held a door open for myself to be able to get into that leadership team. And I have a very different lived experience from our leader, from our whip, who's a good friend of mine, but we have different experiences. We might've both grown up. He's in South Philly, I'm in Southwest, but I'm a young lady. So my perspective and my lived experience is very different than his. And so I thank my colleagues for this trust to be able to be there and to be in that circle, but most importantly, to speak up. because if you're going to just sit there, it doesn't make a difference. But my constituents are positively impacted because when they're making decisions on what we're going to do and what our policy points and goals are, I'm able to speak up and add input.
Yes. So we already talked a little bit about business grants specifically available for the diaspora, immigrants, and African Americans. So we're not going to visit that. And Ken Scott just jumped in and beautifully explained what is getting ready to happen and that they're getting ready to give away money to people who have applied. I'm so stoked. And Ken, I'd like to be able to share that on my radio show. So you and I should talk about that soon, okay? So that we can let the wider audience know. All right, so last question for you before we have questions from the audience. And I don't know how you're going to do this, Eric, so you figure it out and then let me know if somebody's watching from Facebook and people are asking questions because I can't see any of that. My last question for you is, are any takeaways from your journey thus far? If you had to give advice to a protege, what should he or she focus on?
My advice to a protege would be to listen to your constituents. Many times people seek office and they only get there because of constituents' votes. But somehow or another, they can get on a different path because they're not as connected to their constituents. So many of my constituents call me on the phone, and depending on what it is, I say, well, you need to call the office for that. But when there's an issue that we need to discuss, I'm all ears. I want to listen. People want to meet. I said, we're not meeting in the office right now at length because of the in-person and social distancing, but we can get online. We can have a phone call, but listen to them. Show up for them as best as you can. And that doesn't mean a lot of running around. That means to be fully present and to work with them on strategies. I could have the best solution to gun violence in my mind and on paper in legislation, but if I don't have the participation and the support of my community, it is going to fail. We have to let them know that they are the bosses. And so anybody who's doing this or going to do it one day, listen to the neighbors, listen to what their complaints and their concerns are, take them seriously and collaborate. Don't just say, oh, they're criticizing or, oh, they're complaining. Like, no, listen and collaborate to get to a better situation or a better set of circumstances.
Yes, when COVID is over, I'm coming to find you.
Only if you teach me how to make oxtails. My granny loves them.
Not only will I teach you how to make oxtails, I'm making oxtails on Saturday. I'll make sure I get a serving over to you, honey. Nobody makes oxtails like this Jamaican. I'm telling you.
I believe it.
I have one last question. The pandemic and the death of George Floyd are forcing a national reset on racial equality. How can the gains of the Black Lives Matter movement be consolidated and actionable in your opinion?
So there are gains being made, but the key is to not let it go. We don't want any fires, but it has to be like a forest fire where there's perpetual burning and perpetual attention being brought to these matters. I wish that there would never be another police brutality instance anywhere. However, the survey says is likely to happen. It might not be this year, but it'll be next year. Let's not wait for another incident to be upset and to demand change. Let's continue to push the gas on the demand for change and know that it's not easy. It's not like a light switch. Even when some laws change, there still have to be what? Culture changes. I mean, we can't legislate that. Dr. King said we can't legislate the hate somebody might have in their heart. So there have to be culture changes. But we appreciate everyone in the movement for Black lives, for your boldness, for your bravery, for your commitment, for your consistency, because it's tiring, it's exhausting, but also to continue to form allies. For the folks who need us to show up, you pull up, as Sister Rihanna said, for us. We can't do it alone. We need your voices and your networks with ours.
Yes. So, wow. That was so good. That was so incredibly good. Let me tell you one thing that I've noticed across the country. There are Black women and men who are running for office without full support from any party and winning. That PACs are being formed. That we have gotten to the place where we have just gotten tired of being sick and tired, and we're collectively pooling our monies together to run for office, and we are winning. You are a stark example. You have had support from your party to get to where you are, and you did not get there and then sat around. You began to really listen to your constituents. You are a shining example of what is possible when we get into office and do what we're supposed to do, not what we think is okay, right? So I would challenge anybody that is running for a leadership position in political office to really check your leadership qualities first, right? What you are, where are you coming from? What does that look like? What are the things that moves and drives you? Because those are the things that are going to pop up when you least expect it, right? When you're sitting in these positions of leadership and you don't work on your triggers and the things that are driving you. So right now we are going to take, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wow, that was really, really, really good. We did lightning questions. You were on your feet about it. And so who is going to talk? Who's going to give me what the questions are? Is anybody? Who's it? Eric? Anybody?
Yes, please. Hi. So I do have some questions from Facebook. Thanks everyone for, the conversation. So the first question is from Miss Cynthia Davis. You did talk about your Stop the Violence campaign, but she wants to know, how can we stop the violence?
So to stop the violence, it will continuously take all of us. All of us, and when I say all of us, I mean both law enforcement and community and stakeholders, institutions of faith, nonprofits, schools, all of us. I have a proposal right now for middle schools to teach conflict resolution. And that came out of Sandy Hook, from the horrible incident that happened there. The studies are showing that if we really teach the same way we teach, reading, writing, arithmetic, conflict resolution skills, that's another thing that in the long term will begin to decrease the violence that we're seeing and experiencing.
Anna, do you have any more questions? You're freezing.
Yes, sorry, my video paused. I'm in Ghana right now, so please forgive if.
Yes.
We wish we were there with you.
Okay, so we're having some challenges with your connection. Eric, does anyone else have access to the Facebook questions? Leon, anyone?
So there's a comment from Leah.
Okay. She is in Ghana, y'all. So it's the delay is quite. I get it. The delay is something palpable sometimes when you're going across continents.
Yeah.
Lee from Facebook says some folks in office do not focus on the problematic areas. All right, thank you for typing that in. Keep typing them in until it hits the news. So what is okay? How do you want to respond to that, State Rep?
Yes, so it is important, as they say at the Sixers game, make some noise. Make some noise. Many times we think, oh, my legislator knows what's going on in my block. Not necessarily.
Right.
I know what's going on in the block where I live, where I park my car around the corner, where I'm in and out of the house. And of course, I drive around and look through, but I'm serving 60,000 people from Market Street, 63rd and Market Street to Lindbergh Boulevard, all the way up Main Street to Darby, down Whitby Avenue to Yaden. I cannot be everywhere, and I have a terrific legislative team. If you're watching, thank you all for all your hard work, but we cannot be everywhere. So please let us know specific concerns, because we're very plugged in to the 12th district, to the 18th district, to the Darby police, to the Yaden police, and we're happy to work with you to address some of the concerns in your community. What you see happening on your block might not even be happening on the block behind you. but we don't want to let things get out of control. I watched the news after they had the meeting on Simpson Street, and some of the neighbors interviewed said things have been really bad for a long time. So unfortunately, some of them were not shocked by a shooting happening on their block. But of course, no one expects ever for children to be hurt or to be killed. It was just so horrific. And we don't want that to be anywhere. We don't want that to be on the street where I'm living or anywhere else. So please make noise. Let us know your specific concerns. Don't feel like, oh, I'm bothering them. Listen, you're the boss. So let us know what's going on.
Yeah, I love the way you remind your constituents that you're working for them, that they're not working for you, right? And that is a mindset that I would love many other politicians to get. All right, so let's see. You're quite welcome. Dwayne Johnson says, 2020 elections, what do we do?
So we make sure that we're registered to vote, number one. Sometimes if you have not voted in the last year or the last 2 years, but you voted before, you could be purged from the rolls. If you live in Pennsylvania, you could go to votespa.com, votespa.com. You can check your registration. You can request a mail-in ballot. We can vote for no excuse. You don't have to have an absentee. You can vote by mail. The ballots will come out in the middle of September. So what I encourage you to do, 2020 elections, participate. Participate and make your voice heard.
So that was the end of the questions, but I have a follow-up. So, the primaries were just, happening, and we've been asking the commissioners to come and talk to us about what can we do, to get people to participate. And so about 3.5 is going into the 4th week now. My husband and I sent in our application. First thing was we went to Votes PA, and they couldn't find either one of us anywhere. They said our licenses, yes. And it's not the first time that this happened. It happened in the primaries too. So we got deterred. We filled out the form, the paper form, and we sent it in. If it's taking 4 weeks for us to get any response from the electoral office, and it's August, what in the Sam Hill is going to happen in September, October, right? When, lots of people wait until the last second to get their stuff out. We've been just constantly having a dialogue about this. Why is the process so slow? Are you aware?
Absolutely. And that is why I am calling on my colleagues in Harrisburg to call us back to session. We need to tighten up the election code to ensure that counties have the resources, not just to count the ballots, but to be able to distribute them in a quick and efficient response. If I was a political conspiracy theorist, I'd say the majority party, the Republicans who are in control, want chaos. I have been waiting since we left Harrisburg for them to call us back. I mean, they said, well, we're going to come back in August to tighten up the election code. They have to call us back. I'm the caucus chair, but I can't call us back. I'm not the Speaker of the House. I don't have that authority, and I'm waiting for them to call us back. But locally, we are working with the commissioners, both in Philly and the surrounding counties, because it was a real serious challenge June 2nd. Many people who were on the ballot did not know whether or not they were successful or unsuccessful for 2 weeks. We cannot allow that to be November, because we know what's at stake and who we're dealing with. So we are committed to working on that. And I am hopeful, they didn't call it yet, but that will be called back next week or the week thereafter so that we can tighten it up, because they need help. The counties need more money so that they can hire people to do this. This is a new process. It's a new system. The first time was June 2nd, but we want to make sure that it's smooth and that there are no delays whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. And so here is my follow-up question. See, Eric, I didn't listen. Throwing all of this out the window now. We know traditionally seniors vote more than anyone else. Because of COVID-19, many of those ballot voting places will not be open for obvious reasons, right? And we also know that seniors are more likely to contract the virus because of age, health concerns, etc. We've had seniors calling, trying to figure out how can we get all of this to them. They want to vote, but they're feeling frustrated that they will not have the access to vote when the time comes. That concerns me, because especially in Philadelphia, If we don't see anybody else voting, the seniors are going to vote, right? So what can we put in place to make sure that they have access to voting? Are we dropping off the mail-in ballots? Like, what are we doing?
And it's going to take outreach. What I did for the places where seniors live in my district, and you know, I was at Bernice Arms, Jill. I dropped off the applications. Unfortunately, even the political party is not able to request a ballot for someone else. A person has to complete it themselves unless it's completed online the way you just did recently. So I dropped off those ballots at all the places where seniors in my district live so that they could fill them out and request it. But once again, for some, you know, they were really worried, am I going to get it within enough time? I know my mom, she requested hers and it came just a few days before the election. So hers was physically dropped to a drop off because we just thought, no need to try with the mail. You know, what if it doesn't come in time? So it is some strategy that needs to be worked on. And now is the time. We're talking about it at the right time in August so that this can be finalized and much smoother by the time the fall rolls out.
Mm-hmm. State Representative Joanna McClinton, I can't thank you enough. I'm going to have Eric do some closing remarks. Clearly, the conversation that we've had answered all the questions people had, because there were only 2 or 3, so that was good. That says that we had a successful interview, that we hit all pistons, right? People got to hear every answer to everything that they needed. So I want to thank you all so much. Eric is going to have some closing remarks, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Of course, we know you are a warrior queen, state representative. We know that your birthday is coming on the 19th. So we are very grateful that you found time to join us today. And we're also grateful to Andrea for doing such a great job hosting the event. I want to thank our usual supporters who talk, Dr. Ken Scott, State Rep. When you were saying, oh, you're looking around and you don't see Dr. Ken Scott, I said, no, don't worry, he's going to come. It's just that he was sharing another meeting that was conflicting, started 6 o'clock, but he was not going to miss this, because he knows that you will be speaking. So good enough, he's here. So we want to thank Dr. Ken Scott again for all his support.
You're welcome.
And we have Amma, of course. Amma is calling in from Ghana. Amma has been a FunTimes team and very strong at that. So I don't know what we can do without her. She's there. This time is almost what time will it be now? It's almost 11 o'clock or thereabout 11. Yeah, going to 12, and she's up trying to make this happen with us. So we really appreciate what you are doing. And of course, we want to say a big thank you to Jillian for being a sponsor for this event. In fact, she has never missed any beat. Anytime we have events, she's part of it, and we hope that we'll be able to promote her small business. She's both part of the Derby Borough, and she's also running her small business. So we hope that we'll be able to bring her some business by focusing on spotlighting, showcasing what she does to help people with regard to insurance. I also have a couple of people here, Alisa, Walter, Susanna, and a member of all our FunTimes team that are in-house helping to make this happen. I have Nina Gary here. Nina is a student from Westchester University who will be helping out as an intern, and she also writes. Her major is English. Nina, do you have a minute to say hello? Nina, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me? Hi. I just wanted to say thank you so much for letting me be a part of this moment, and I really enjoyed it, and I'm so inspired by the things that you said, and it was an awesome moment for me, and I'm always going to remember it, and I hope that you keep going, and I really feel You do so much good for the community, and I'm so thankful for you and Eric Nazareti together.
Awesome, Nina. I didn't know you are such an orator, a big speaker, but next time I will still remember to call you because I like people that speak so well. So I have Leon, I have Judy here. I'm not sure I know you people very well personally, but Leon, do you want to make any statement? Leon, you are muted. Do you want to speak? I'm calling you.
Me?
Leon Howard. No, Leon Howard. Do you want to?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I just put it out there. I want to thank, FunTimes for this opportunity. State Rep Joanna and I go way back. We're part of the same church family, and we part of the youth ministry, and she's been a great servant leader in our community in the Yaden Borough and the William Penn School District. And this is just a phenomenal platform. I'm just hoping I can see more of this in our community to just be able to serve the community as we should. So this was a great opportunity. So I just want to thank everybody. This was a great interview, and this is phenomenal.
Appreciate. So, and we also have Judy. Judy, I'm not sure I know you very well. Do you want to say hello, Judy? Judy Baptiste. Okay. So we have a couple of people that are on Facebook. Want to say big thank you to them. And I mentioned a FunTimes team. Next event that we have is we'll be having another event August 21st, and that will be millennials who are making it. The people that are from 35 and under that are making it. We'll be having a big event with them next August 21st. And then we want to use this public forum. Recently, I think it was on our Facebook, recently we got a grant from Independence Public Media Foundation. Actually, we are tagged on with AFAHO to do some African immigrant story writing. So we want to thank them in this public manner. Of course, we want to thank Rizal Philly, who we partner in a lot of storytelling or narration and solution journalism. Of course, we have a working relationship with Beach, we have a relationship with Brown ShopRite, and Census, US Census 2020. We are also working with them. We are there. They are our partners and they sponsor what we do. It's just a brief moment that I've taken to acknowledge the people that make a difference in what we do. And of course, Sandy is a member of our board, and she is there 24 hours. Unlike the state rep that has a downtime, Sandy is up 24 hours. Anytime you call her, she's right there. So I don't know how she does it, but we appreciate that she's doing it because she is among the wind behind our cell that is making FunTimes do what they are doing. I want to thank her, and I want to thank Dr. Ken Scott and every other person. So I'm giving the mic back to Andrea so that she can continue what she's doing, the great work she's doing. I also wanted to thank the person that said the prayers. I don't think he's here. I think he had to do it really quickly and run off. But I'm giving it back to Andrea to continue and finish up the good job she has done.
All right. So on behalf of FunTimes Magazine, thank you so much for those of you who have joined us. The co-hosts tonight were Eric, Susanna Kate, Sandra Lawrence, Anana Amo Ado, Diamond Jones, Walter Wentz, Alyssa Yamazaki, Timothy Schreiber, and Angel Park. And of course me, Andrea Lawful Sanders, who was your host for for this evening. State Representative Joanna McClinton, it was a pleasure. I didn't know we would be able to have this conversation in this forum, but I'm telling you, you are a gem to our community. FunTimes magazine has recognized you. You've been recognized in so many ways, and we will continue to look to you for your work in the future. Thank you again for all that you have done for our communities, even not just the ones that you're serving, but really across the Commonwealth. And we fully appreciate what you have done. I also need you to know that you have become a lantern unto our feet, right, of what is possible and what we should be able to do if we want to move this work forward in a way with humility and grace, and to always remember that the constituents are our bosses. All of you have a wonderful evening and a very good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Night.
Bye.
Good night.